Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. That someone is Warren Buffett. He's worth $140 billion. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. And yet, he's the greatest wealth builder who ever lived. Here's what's wild. He didn't build his fortune with some genius algorithm. He didn't have insider secrets. He didn't even use a computer until he was in his 60s. He built it with habits, 7 of them, to be exact. And in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what those habits are, and more importantly, how ordinary people, just like you and I, can start applying them today. Let me paint you a picture. It's 1942. The world is in the middle of a war. Most kids are trading baseball cards and trying to get through school. But there's a boy in Omaha, Nebraska, who's doing something different. He's buying stock. His name is Warren Edward Buffett, and with $114.75 of his saved earnings, money he made delivering newspapers, selling chewing gum door to door, and reselling Coca-Cola bottles, he bought 3 shares of City's Service Preferred. That's not the impressive part. The impressive part? He's still doing essentially the same thing today, 82 years later. If you've ever felt like wealth was reserved for the lucky, the connected, or the genetically gifted, this story is your proof that it isn't. Because Warren Buffett wasn't a genius at 11. He was just disciplined, and discipline, unlike talent, is available to everyone. Here's what nobody tells you though. The 7 habits that made Buffett a billionaire weren't secrets he discovered on Wall Street. Most of them he learned before he turned 25. Before he had a single dollar invested in Berkshire Hathaway. Before anyone on earth had ever heard his name. We'll get to those habits in a moment. But first, you need to understand something about how Buffett thinks about money. Because without this foundation, none of the 7 habits will make any sense. Buffett grew up during the Great Depression. Think about what that means. As a child, he watched adults, grown, educated, hard-working adults, lose everything. Businesses, homes, savings, gone overnight. And rather than walking away terrified of money like most people did, young Warren became obsessed with understanding it. By age 13, he was filing his own tax returns. By 14, he owned the 40-acre farm he'd purchased with paper route money. By 16, he had saved $53,000 today's dollars. He wasn't lucky. He was relentless. And that relentlessness gave birth to the very first habit, and honestly, it's the one most people skip. Habit 1. Read, obsessively, every single day. Buffett reads between 500 and 1,000 pages, every day. When asked how to get smarter, he once held up a stack of papers and said, "Read 500 pages like this every day. That's how knowledge works. It builds up, like compound interest." Compound interest. We'll come back to that phrase, because it's the secret engine behind everything Buffett has ever built. But here's the crazy part. Most people hear 500 pages a day and immediately give up. They think it's impossible. But Buffett isn't reading 500 pages of novels. He's reading annual reports, trade publications, biographies, newspapers. He's consuming information about business, about people, about how the world works. He estimates he spends 80% of his working day just reading and thinking. Not emailing, not in meetings, but reading and thinking. If you've ever felt like you don't have enough information to make good financial decisions, this is your answer. The information is out there. Buffett didn't get a special feed no one else could access. He just showed up every day and consumed it. This leads directly into habit 2. Guard your time like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Buffett's calendar is famously empty. His longtime business partner, Charlie Munger, once said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the reason most successful people fail to get smarter over time is because they fill every minute of the day with activity, with busyness, with noise. Buffett disagrees with busy. He says no, constantly, deliberately, almost ruthlessly. The difference between successful people and really successful people, Buffett once said, is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Think about that for a second. While most people are accepting every meeting, chasing every opportunity, jumping between tasks, Buffett is sitting quietly in his office, reading, thinking, waiting for the perfect decision. Not a good decision, the perfect one. This isn't laziness. This is elite-level focus. And it connects directly to the next one, the habit that most millionaires share, but almost nobody talks. Habit 3. Live well below your means, always. Buffett earns $100,000 a year in salary from Berkshire Hathaway. That's it, for the job of running a $900 billion company. He still clips coupons. He still drives himself to work. The man drinks $3.17 cherry Coke from McDonald's for breakfast most mornings, and he calls it one of his greatest joys. This isn't performance. It's not humility for the cameras. This is the man's genuine philosophy that every dollar you spend is a dollar that can't compound. And compounding is habit 4, which might be the most powerful force in the history of human wealth building. Before we get to compounding, let's talk about something Buffett almost never discusses publicly, his failures. Because here's the truth, Warren Buffett has lost billions, multiple times. In 1998, he admitted he paid way too much for General Re, a reinsurance company that nearly dragged Berkshire down. In 2020, he sold all of Berkshire's airline stocks at a massive loss right before they rebounded. He's made costly bets on Dexter Shoes, Salomon Brothers, and ConocoPhillips that he's publicly described as mistakes. This is the part nobody warns you about when they talk about Buffett. He's not infallible. He's not psychic. He doesn't have a perfect record. What he has is a framework, a set of habits that ensure his wins are so catastrophically large, his losses become footnotes. Habit 4. Understand and weaponize the magic of compounding. Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said it or not, the math doesn't lie. If you invest $10,000 at 20 years old at a 10% annual return as the historical average of the S&P 500 and you never touch it again, by age 65, you have $728,000. Same $10,000 invested at 30, you retire with $281,000. Same $10,000 invested at 40, $108,000. 10 years of delay. $600,000 in difference from the exact same initial investment. This is why Buffett says, and I want you to really hear this, my wealth has come from a combination of living in America, some lucky genes, and compound interest. But here's where it gets interesting. Buffett doesn't see a dollar as a dollar. He sees it as a seed. Every dollar he spends today is a future tree he's chopping down before it grows. This is why he guards spending so obsessively. Not because he's cheap, because he understands the actual cost of money spent now versus money allowed to compound later. This mindset feeds directly into habit 5, and this one is the one that most people get completely backwards. Habit 5. Only invest in what you completely understand. Buffett famously avoided technology stocks for decades. People thought he was out of touch, out of date, missing the boat. Then the dot-com bubble burst in 2001, and trillions of dollars vanished overnight. Buffett lost nothing. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing, he said. His rule is brutal in its simplicity. If he can't explain in plain English what a company does, how it makes money, and why it will still be doing that in 20 years, he doesn't touch it. Doesn't matter how exciting the pitch is. Doesn't matter what CNBC is saying. He calls it his circle of competence. Know what you know. Don't pretend to know what you don't. If you're still watching, this next part changes everything. Because habits 6 and 7 are the ones that separate people who understand Buffett's philosophy from people who actually build wealth with it. Habit 6. Find wonderful companies and hold them forever. This sounds simple. It isn't. Buffett bought Coca-Cola stock in 1988. He paid roughly $1.3 billion for his stake. Today, that stake is worth over $24 billion. And every single year, Coca-Cola pays Berkshire over $700 million in dividends alone on a $1.3 billion investment made in 1988. He didn't trade it, didn't time the market, didn't sell when it dropped. He just held it. The average investor holds a stock for about 10 months before selling. Buffett's average holding period? Forever. He's literally said that. Our favorite holding period is forever. Want to know the truth about why most people never build real wealth in the stock market? It's not because they picked bad stocks. It's because they couldn't resist the urge to act. Every time the market dipped, they panicked and sold. Every time a hot new stock appeared, they chased it. Buffett's genius isn't in finding stocks nobody else sees. His genius is in doing nothing when everyone else is losing their minds. Be fearful when others are greedy, he says, and greedy when others are fearful. In March 2020, when COVID crashed the market 34% in 33 days and investors were fleeing in absolute panic, Buffett was calm, watching, waiting, looking for wonderful companies on sale. Because he understood something most people don't. The market always recovers. Always. And the people who get rich from crashes are the ones who had the discipline not to sell during them. This leads us to the 7th habit. And this one is the most human of all of them. Habit 7. Invest in yourself first. Every single year. The best investment you can make, Buffett has said, is an investment in yourself. The more you learn, the more you earn. Here's something most people don't know about Warren Buffett. He was terrified of public speaking, paralyzingly, physically sick with terror when he had to stand in front of a crowd. At 20 years old, having already proven himself intellectually at Columbia Business School under Benjamin Graham, he still couldn't bring himself to speak confidently in a room full of people. So he signed up for a Dale Carnegie course on public speaking, not because it would make him richer, because he knew that communication was the bridge between knowledge and impact. The certificate from that course? It's the only framed diploma on his office wall. Not his Columbia degree, not any award, the Dale Carnegie certificate. He invested in himself before he invested in anything else. And he says it's the highest return investment any person can make, because unlike stocks, no one can ever take away what's in your head. Every skill you build compounds. Every book you read compounds. Every relationship you invest in compounds. The person reading this who decides today to learn about investing, to improve how they communicate, to understand business and finance, that person will look back in 20 years and realize that decision was worth more than any single stock they ever bought. So what do these 7 habits look like when they're all running together? Let me show you something. In 1965, Buffett took control of a struggling textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. The stock was trading at $18 per share. Today, a single Class A share of Berkshire Hathaway costs over $540,000. Not because of one genius decision. Not because of a hot IPO or a lucky bet. Because for 60 years, Warren Buffett showed up, read his 500 pages, guarded his time, lived below his means, let his investments compound, only bought what he understood, held forever, and kept investing in himself. 60 years of 7 habits. By 2023, Berkshire Hathaway owned over 60 companies outright and held significant stakes in some of the most recognizable brands on earth: Apple, American Express, Bank of America, Chevron, and of course, Coca-Cola. The company's total assets, over $1 trillion. And Buffett has pledged to give 99% of his wealth away to charity before he dies, through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and his own family foundations. Even in generosity, he's compounding, because his donations grow in value the longer Berkshire's stock climbs. Here's what I want you to take away from everything you just heard. Warren Buffett's wealth is not a miracle. It's not magic. It's not luck. It is the predictable, inevitable result of 7 specific habits applied with extraordinary consistency over an extraordinary amount of time. Read obsessively every day. Guard your time ruthlessly. Live below your means. Understand the power of compounding. Only invest in what you truly understand. Find great companies and hold them forever. Invest in yourself first. None of these require a Harvard degree. None of them require a Wall Street connection. None of them require you to be born rich. They require discipline, patience, and the willingness to start. Here's the part that should genuinely excite you. Buffett has said repeatedly that a simple, low-cost index fund, tracking the S&P 500, bought consistently over time, will outperform most professional fund managers over a 20-year period. He actually bet $1 million on it in 2008 against a group of elite hedge fund managers. After 10 years, he won by a landslide. You don't need to be Warren Buffett to use Warren Buffett's habits. You just need to start today with whatever you have. Someone is sitting in the shade today, he said, because someone planted a tree a long time ago. That tree could be yours, but only if you plant it. The 7 habits that built Buffett's fortune aren't locked behind a paywall or taught in elite MBA programs. They're right here. And now you know them.